Whole meeting to order. The meeting has been noticed to Evans Print and Media Group, WCOW Radio, Magnum Radio, La Crosse Tribune, Sparta City Hall, and the Sparta Free Library. Before I ask for any other changes to the agenda, I will ask that we move business item B, discussion of possible recommendation to approve policy 2240. We'll take that right after the public input session. Any other changes to the agenda?
No, they're not.
All righty. Then I would welcome a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
I'll make that motion.
And I will second.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wells, and second by Mr. Scholze. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Russ, the mission statement.
Yes, our mission statement is to educate all students academically, emotionally, and socially to inspire curiosity and resilience.
Thank you. Public input session, we have two. Mr. Leverage.
Mrs. Leverage first. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. We press that button down till it's green for me, please.
Okay, now it is. Okay. Myself or my husband has already spoken to many of you guys personally regarding this issue, but I just want to, this is policy 2240. I just wanted to reiterate to you that this policy, I feel, will have a detrimental effect on the students and the climate in our school system. I do not feel that the consideration of controversial issues has a legitimate place in the instructional program of the district. These issues can and will potentially surface during the school day in classes where it's not part of the curriculum, which is understandable. However, instead of taking time out of the content of that particular class and addressing these issues and making them part of the class and bringing them to the forefront, where teachers give their opinions, they should be avoided, and teachers should send it back to the students to have them talk to their parents about this controversial issue. And where do the parents feel that they want their children to believe in, and they might have religious values and their own opinions regarding that issue. A teacher has an implicit position of authority and influence in the classroom, just by the fact that their job is the purveyor of knowledge and facts, which the kids, especially the young ones, look up to them in the school and value their opinions. And whether it is noticed or not, those kids are being influenced by the opinions of their teachers. In a classroom of kids, there will be some that believe and some that don't, that take an opposing side. And what happens after they leave that classroom? Out of the earshot of adults? What happens in the hallways, in the bathrooms, in the cafeteria and recess, where one student might say, well, I can't believe you believe that. That's stupid. That's dumb. What happens on social media? There's a lot of things that are talking that it's going on, and it's a very divisive kind of an atmosphere if you bring up controversial issues. And I don't think that those controversial issues are a good they're a divisive issue in the classroom. And I think that it's not a good climate system for our school to have those issues coming up. Is that 2 minutes? Okay.
Thank you, Marla. Jim?
Thank you. I probably wouldn't have come back, but I saw some things on the news this weekend that really disturbed me. When a young person took her life after she was bullied in a school, and it was probably due to some controversial issue, and she got beat up and she died. She took her life. And so these kinds of things in the school system are not necessary. I was in education for 33 years, and I tried to keep my opinions out of my education. This should be a safe environment. I think you're really opening yourself up to a lot of liability as a school district and as a board. I think it's just wrong. I'm just drawing a flat line. And I know you don't agree with you. Many of you, I've tried to talk to you, but I say to my neighbors, you walk down the street, you want your kids to go down to the neighbor or any neighbor and have them give their opinions and tell that kid what they should do and what they should think? I don't think you do, because most of you said no. Well, I don't know who the neighbor is. I don't know who the teacher is. I shouldn't have to worry about that as a taxpayer, that you're giving that authority to 400 people. It's not needed. They have a curriculum, follow it. They do not need to have an opinion. They can, I know it's going to come up and they're going to have opinions, but you should try and avoid that conflict. We got enough conflict in our schools right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. So then we will move to the next item, which is in business, which is 3B, discussion and possible recommendation to approve policy 2240.
So this came, a little bit of history. This came through a workshop model back in, what are we in February now? In January or late December. This came to the committee of the whole. And then at the full board meeting in January, it was decided to send this back to the workshop model. So on February 1st, there were, I think, 5 board members there, along with other community members. And we did some pretty extensive discussion on this policy 2240. And after we went through these, there wasn't, I would say, in my opinion, not a lot of major differences that came out of the workshop in December and the committee of the whole in January. Just a little bit more straightforward language, bulleted. The committee thought that, you know what, this gives our teachers some direction as well. So other board members that were there are welcome to share their experience there, but 2240 is on the agenda and in the slides for all to view and open it up for discussion.
So I'll put people on the spot. Ms. Lopez, you were there. Is there anything you'd like to add to the discussion?
For sure. Thank you. Not necessarily from just the workshop, but I'll preface this by saying I realize I'm giving my opinion now. And I said that in the workshop as well on a controversial topic where we're discussing people having that ability to provide their opinion. In an ideal world, this wouldn't be an issue. Everyone would have that support at home. They would be able to have those networks to rely on to discuss all these issues that may come up in our lives, real life. However, not everybody has that. So to say that we cannot have or discuss controversial issues in the classroom, I don't think that's real. We don't have a policy at the current time other than some guidelines at the high school to give teachers or the district or administration or parents any parameters, to know what to expect. So I think it's important that we have a policy like this. I'm not sure if we've gone far enough with the opinion piece of it. It may be even yet another accommodation that we could make, or I don't know. There was give and take in the workshop, so that was wonderful. Everybody was able to express their thoughts on the matter, and things were changed and discussion was had. But maybe it should be where we put in policy that teachers are not encouraged to give their opinion. They may, but maybe they're not encouraged to do so. That's one thought. But another thought I had, and actually Mr. Leverich might have brought this up and I'm not sure if he did, but if we were to focus on student engagement in controversial issues and not necessarily or not including what the teachers think, we may be able to have a more non-hostile environment. And so maybe because we don't have a policy now, maybe we can look at this, put this on the agenda for a year from now and see how many times in the school year this policy had to be referenced by administration and see if it was working for parents, administration, teachers, to see if it's a good model to follow or if we need to make adjustments to it. So that would be my thought.
Thank you. Pat, Mr. McKenna, do you have comments?
Could you scroll down just a hair, Sam? Do you remember why we removed the word persuade after indoctrinate?
And so you're asking why didn't we get or persuade?
Yeah, I don't remember that being discussed. And then I saw that it was crossed when this came through in the last revision.
Oh, sure, maybe.
Can you hear me? I believe we were thinking that part of the discussion, we can't guarantee that kids aren't being persuaded. So, you know, as kids are doing any kind of persuasion, we're asking them to support that with evidence. And so in the course of that discussion, kids may change their mind. And so we felt like if we didn't cross that out, that becomes like a bad side effect when that's really the goal of any type of persuasion is you're trying to get people to see your way. Not from the teacher's lens exactly, but the kids too. So kids are, you know, having this debate and trying to persuade other people. So I think that's the reason we crossed that word out.
Isn't this a teacher policy though, not a student policy? We're talking about the teacher's opinion being shared in a classroom and how that would persuade students. I was just surprised to see that gone. I may have missed that in the workshop.
Yeah, I agree, though. I think we did discuss that because you can't control if something that I say is persuasive. I mean, but just by expressing an opinion, it might not even be my opinion, but by expressing a side to an argument, someone may be persuaded, even if I didn't intend to persuade them. I mean, why else would you, I mean, you're giving all sides of an argument. Someone might be persuaded by one of those sides of an argument. It might not have been your intention. In fact, it might be persuaded to an argument that wasn't your opinion at all.
And I appreciate that, John. And that's where I thought the word intend before that kind of covered that. But here or there, yeah, I guess I do have a couple comments on this. Sorry, I think this kind of not this policy, but this issue sort of hits at the core of why I'm up here to begin with. I've mentioned multiple times the only reason that I ran for the board was division that I saw inside of our community, inside of the schools. And I tend to believe that was all over things that were opinion that were viewed as fact, and how the community reacted to them. I think that led to a very unhealthy atmosphere. I've reached out to a lot of people, staff, educators in other districts, community members, parents. I've talked to students. Probably the most memorable conversation I had with anybody was a gentleman who's a retired educator from another district and started his teaching career in 1964 and retired as an administrator a handful of years ago. I asked him about this and he paused for a minute and then said, you know, in 1964, there were no controversial topics. Well, that's not true. I mean, anybody here who has any basis in history knows JFK was assassinated in 63. And 64 was the middle of the race riots. It was as controversial a time as we've ever had in this country. But neighbors weren't divided and families weren't divided over controversy. And it all comes down to the controversial part isn't the problem, it's the opinion piece. And how do we deal with opinion? It seems like in today's society, it's become normal that if someone thinks differently than you, they're stupid. And we try to persuade. I think that's the politics of today's world. if 51% of people vote one way, 49% are wrong. That's not reality. And that's not what I want to teach kids. It's not about right and wrong. It's not black and white. It's just different, and different is okay. If I like the opinion piece here, because it teaches the most important thing we can teach in the school today. And I'm sorry, we all need to learn facts. But if we want to have kids that leave here and be successful, they have to know how to critically think. That comes from forming your own opinion. That comes from being able to problem solve. It's this. And when we got started down this path, I was definitely on the side that we were better off just taking opinion out, because I saw it, what opinion has caused to us the last couple of years. And now I think the opposite. I think we need healthy perspective. We need teachers who are responsible enough to say, this is my opinion, but my opinion doesn't matter as much as yours. I'm going to help you form your own, and this is why. It's just not about me being right. If we had 200 kids across the stage in May that think like me, we fail. We need 200 kids that think like them, and we need to help them get there. This is how we do it. I don't think it's perfect, like Amy said. I think a year from now, we're probably going to be revisiting this. I think there's going to need to be wordsmithing. I love the fact that it gives our teachers a guide. We can't set up staff for failure. Every time a conversation starts out with, I think, the next thing's an opinion.
Thank you, Pat.
Mr. Hendricks.
Yes.
Yeah, so to piggyback off of that, Mr. McKenna, I feel like you said it perfectly. I think right now the focus is that we don't have anything. We don't have a guide for our educators. And I know we as a board have been receiving emails and communications with community members and educators asking us to provide a guide. And so while it's not perfect, again, I don't think it's perfect either. I think the 1 year out is a phenomenal idea. It gives us something, and it gives our educators a guide to say, I feel comfortable with this, or being able to understand where their limitations are as well is really important for them to be able to help the students. So that's really the main focus for me. And I want to thank whoever was at that workshop. There was a phenomenal showing there. It would have been great to be there. So thank you, everybody that was present for that.
Other comments or a motion?
I guess I would make a motion to accept policy 2240 as presented. And I guess I'll just share one piece. I thought the conversation from the workshop that we were at, I think went really well. We were able to go line by line and really be intentional with how the policy was laid out because of the feedback from our stakeholders, right? Our educators, our students want some of this type of conversations. I think one thing that drove home for me that I didn't talk about at that policy was just reviewing the, if y'all remember, the early college credit applications. Our highest classes that our students were wanting to take was intro to sociology, communicating effectively, general psych, right? So a lot of layers that overlap with controversial issues. So to me, that's another piece to consider of how can we prepare all of our students to graduate with those skills. And these are going to form, right, what Mr. McKenna said, not what to think, but how to think, right? And if our educators have incredible life experiences that have formed their opinions, it would be valuable for our students to learn how they process that and how they carry those lessons with them, because hopefully that's what our students will do after graduation. So I definitely support this. And I do think revisiting it, hopefully we're revisiting all of our policies on a regular basis and not get into this backlog again that we've seen the last few months, but really was appreciative of the time that we had together and look forward to more of these conversations. So I'll stop rambling and yield. Sure.
So we have a motion to recommend to the full board. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schulze. Any further discussion?
If I could just make a point. Would you mind going lower in the policy, please? Mr. McKenna, number 3, just a little lower there. Must not, now we are talking about a staff member. And maybe we should remove the word classroom from that line above in the discussion of any controversial issue in the classroom, because I think we talked in the workshop that the classroom extends beyond the classroom, maybe not though. But I just wanted to say number 3, a staff member must not express such an opinion for the purpose of persuading students to their point of view. So for the policy, it is the indoctrinate, but when it comes down to the staff member, we're like, let's not persuade.
That was the big kicker for me, was number 3. It's that puts the staff member in check at that point. So that was, yeah, I figured that was like big topic of conversation, and I was glad to see that put in there.
All right, thank you.
Are we adding to this motion to revisit this policy then in a year?
Is that a friendly amendment? Okay, and friendly to the second here?
Absolutely.
And one thing, if it's okay, the year I would like to put it into May or June, because if we do it right now, we'd really only have one semester of things. I'm not sure how many, our curriculum set and everything like that, or we can do it from this year moving forward as well, because we have the rest of the year as well to make this implementation. It's March, April, and May. So it really depends when the board would like to revisit it, whether February of next year or whatever date.
I assumed it was 12 months. Okay.
Okay.
Very good. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, moving on to reports, achievement gap reduction and map data report. Ms. Mansky.
It is a mouthful. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. AGR is what we call it. So it's not such a mouthful. So AGR does stand for Achievement Gap Reduction. It is a 5-year contract that we have with the state DPI. And within that, the requirements are that we must implement one of the 3 strategies listed below. And those strategies are one-to-one tutoring, instructional coaching for teachers, or maintaining an 18 student to 1 teacher ratio or a 30 student to 2 teacher ratio. And this is for all K-3 classrooms. So part of the requirements for that AGR is that we have to implement one or more of those 3 strategies. Every year, we need to report on what strategies we're using to the DPI at the beginning of the school year. And then at the end of the year, we also do that same report. Throughout the year, we set performance objectives and report on those to you. And those goals are based on the reducing the achievement gap for our low-income students in the areas of reading and math. We also include in that report the assessments that we use to measure those achievements. And then I'll report to you now and then again in June, the implementation of those strategies, those objectives again, and the achievements to those goals. So the schools that qualify for AGR are Herman and Southside. And you may be wondering why not Montessori, because I wondered the same thing. This is based off of SAGE, which was 5 to 10 years ago is when we kind of phased out from SAGE and moved into AGR. And when we made that transition, it was the schools that qualified for SAGE, qualified for AGR, but no new schools. So that's why Montessori is not an AGR receiving district or school. So the strategies that we use at both Herman and Southside are instructional coaching, and you can see the funding that we receive from AGR as well. So at Southside, their goal for reading is that 80% of students will be at or above the norm grade level on the PALS assessment. PALS is an early literacy screening assessment. And so part of that is the lowercase letter recognition. I just want to let you know that in PALS, the goal would be 26 letters. And so there's kind of like logical steps along the way to get to that end goal. So in the beginning of the year, there were 19 students that knew all of their letters. That's 16%. And at the winter, they're up to 65 students and 55%. Overall PALS score, you can see we had great improvement there as well, from 54 students to 101, from 45% to 86%. Looking at math, they created a district assessment, and that district assessment is counting to 100. In the fall, 31 students were able to do that, which is 26%. And in the winter, 30% were able to do that, or 35 students. That winter assessment was the end of the first trimester. So that's really like the end of November. So they'll be doing that again the end of February. So I'm sure that it'll keep going up as they keep moving throughout the year. For Herman, they're using the MAP assessment. I'll talk more about MAP in just a little bit, but I want to let you know that when we're talking about MAP, it's a little bit different than like the letters. So letters, there's this goal that we're trying to shoot for. On MAP, it's looking at that national norm. And so at the beginning of the year, it's like here, and then the middle of the year, it goes up again. And then the end of the year, it goes even higher. So we're not going to that one steady point, which is why the numbers don't always just increase as simply as they do with an assessment like count to 100 or recognize all letters. So we can see those fall scores and then the winter scores. Math also uses the MAP assessment, and the goal is that 80% of students will be at or above the norm grade level mean. Any questions on that part of the presentation? Okay.
Well,
Oh,
hold
I'm
on.
sorry, I do have a question. Sorry, so for the performance objectives, the 80% of students will be able to do XYZ. Is there a certain time of year that that goal is intended to be achieved by the end of the year, or?
Yep, by the end of the year, that's the goal.
Okay, and then for Herman and the maps, as opposed to Southside and PALS, you said that incrementally something increases. Is that the growth percentage increases, or what is it that increases?
So that national norm is the norm is basically saying this is the national average. And so at the beginning of the year, the average is lower than at the middle of the year and higher, and the end of the year. So that's never like, there's not like an end goal to get to here. That target is always moving up.
Okay, so does that indicate that our percentages at winter aren't, or yeah, winter, I guess is what we're looking at now, aren't quite matching up with, like, our achievement isn't quite getting to this national norm increase?
It's not growing as fast as we'd like it to grow. You're correct.
Okay.
Ms. Mansky, I have a question for you also. The performance objectives and the 80% and all of that. How does that jive with one of the objectives of concentrating on the achievement gap for low socioeconomic students? I'm assuming when it says 158, that means that's all students, not low socioeconomic students. Am I correct about that?
You are correct. That has been part of the discussion. How do we target it maybe differently? So we are in the stages of discussing how we might set our goals differently in the future to really focus in on that target group more.
So perhaps with the end of the year report, would it be reasonable to request that in addition to the information that you're currently presenting, can you break out for us students who fall within the low socioeconomic category that we're kind of targeting?
Absolutely. I'm writing that down right now.
Thank you.
So, and the teachers, they are aware of these scores and where we are currently sitting, correct? So when they do their Wednesday PLCs, they know what they have to hit on in order. So, you know, our percentage points have fallen from fall to winter, which nobody wants to see, but our teachers, I can assume, are aware of what needs to be done and what they need to focus on. So when we come back in the spring and have that final report, we'll see them go the way we want them to go.
That's definitely the goal, and trying to think about how do we use our resources? How do we use our intervention time? How do we use our staff to meet those needs and to help students close those gaps?
So then in the springtime, are we able to get kind of a synopsis of either they're using the same techniques or they gave the same piece of instruction, but if they presented it in a different way? And that way we can kind of track that this way works better than teaching it this way, or does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. That's part of that PLC process. When we examine the data, like really having that conversation of, you know, why did your kids do so much better on this
Right.
assessment than mine? What are you doing? And some of the things that come out in those discussions are, well, I'm just going to give you an example. You know, when the kids come in the morning, we do this warm up for math every day, and your kids are scoring 10 points higher than my kids on math. Tell me more about what you're doing. So we're having those conversations within the PLC, but I think that's a great point. What are those things that are coming up out of those conversations? How are you learning from each other to grow our students better?
Right. And I think it kind of holds that accountability piece that we're always looking for, and that transparency piece that, yeah, we give the extra hour on Wednesdays for those PLCs. I'd like to see how those PLCs are actually being used in the classroom. Thank you.
Great questions. Go ahead.
Whose goal is the 80%? Where does that come from?
Yep, that goal was made with the principals.
Is it realistic? And I'm not saying I want to lower the bar necessarily, but having a goal that you're not coming close to isn't a real good motivating factor either.
So part of the contract with that 5-year contract, like this was the goal that was set when that contract was signed. So that was part of the discussion when we were possibly looking at making changes. There was just not enough time to make a change and do something different for this year, but that could absolutely be part of that process for next year.
I have another question, or a comment rather. And this kind of goes to Mr. Hendrick's point with the lower socioeconomic students. And I believe Mr. McKenna has actually investigated the state report card a little bit more than I have, but we do have some evidence that we're closing that gap from the state report card that we just received regarding those targeted students. Correct? So we know that for those students, at least, it appears as though that gap is slowly closing. We just need to get all students.
And I have a slide in the next part about the growth and how we're doing with those growth goals at each grade level as well. So stay tuned. Any other questions before we move on?
One thing to know that you mentioned growth, Ms. Lopez, none of this is growth, and that's hard to do. So that's, you know, if the mean RIT score for a first grader is, I'm going to say 200, and in the fall, I'm at 100, they may never meet that benchmark of 210 by the end of the year. However, we may get them within 209 and they would still be counted as a no. So there's different things that we can measure that on, but for the AGR, this is our performance measure, and that's what we're working for, to have all kids be at that grade level by the end of the year. That's where that 80% is so important.
And I'm sorry, I misstated. I should have said achievement, because I do think that the achievement on the district report card indicates the target group is okay.
We're having
growing.
good success with our target group growth.
Okay.
You said it right the first time, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
okay.
You said the growth, you know, rather than the straightforward achievement.
Okay,
But our ultimate goal is to get every kid at grade level.
yes.
And that's that 80% that we're shooting for. And right now we're falling below that.
So I chose to focus on data from the winter to winter for our MAPS assessment this year. And the reason that I did that is because a lot of times we hear about summer slide. So kids will typically slide back a little bit, and then within a month they catch up. So by looking at winter of last year to winter of this year, I was trying to eliminate all of that summer slide. So just to tell you a little bit about the MAP assessment, it's a district-wide assessment that we use in grades 1 through 10. We do this 3 times a year for both reading and math, and it's adaptive. And what that means is that if I get a question right, it's going to move to a harder question. If I get a question wrong, it moves to an easier question. So it keeps going through that process until it kind of finds that just right level for me, which is different than the forward exam, which every kid gets the same questions for that test. So I just want to be very clear about the differences between those 2 assessments. It gives us a RIT score. So the numbers that you'll see are called RIT scores, and a RIT is short for a rash unit. And basically it just measures that student achievement and growth over time. And it tries to do it in a stable way so that the grade level and the age of the student doesn't really impact that score. The advantage of a MAP assessment over forward is that we get immediate feedback. And so teachers the next day can make adjustments to their instruction versus that forward assessment. We don't get the results until the summer. By the time teachers get them, the kids are on to the next year. So they're not as useful as far as instruction. So Ms. Presswood, you asked some questions about PLC, and yes, how MAP data is used. We do a lot of teachers set goals with their students. And if you walk around the middle school, you can see a lot of those visual representations of that goal setting that's happening within the classrooms. Teachers use that information to plan for reteaching and small group instruction because that MAP reports really tell us what the child is ready for, what skills are they ready for next. During those PLCs, we're discussing those essential standards, discussing the skills, what students each of those standards mean as far as what students need to know, understand, and do, and then talking about those instructional strategies. And some part of that would be that engagement. So this first slide shows the elementary reading achievement. So the blue would be last winter's score. The red is this winter's score, and the yellow is that national norm. The next slide is showing that middle school achievement. And then high school.
I'm going to interrupt for just a moment so that I'm clear about this. These graphs show last year's 9th graders compared with this year's 9th graders, or last year's 8th graders compared with this year's 9th graders, the same students.
So this would be a different group of students. So that would have been last year's 9th graders had that 218. And this year's 9th graders have 220.
So if you want to stick with the same students, you would just look red to red or blue to blue? No, that doesn't make sense.
You would look blue from 9th grade to red of 10th grade.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Do you have a question, Mr. McKenna? Okay. I'll move on then to this next one. I'm sorry. So this next one is showing the reading growth. And this looks like a lot to look at. That diamond in the middle is what the growth. So when we look at that national norm, the diamond shows where that average growth would be. So you can see from first grade to second grade, we're looking at a really big number. We're expecting kids to grow 14 points. When we look at like 10th grade, we're really expecting them only to grow, I can't tell it on my screen, three points. So the expected growth diminishes as the grades get higher. So that's what the diamond is. If you look at the blue bar, that's our actual growth. So when we look at second grade, remember that's middle of first grade to middle of second grade. That bar is going right up to the middle of the diamond. We've exactly made that growth goal. When we look at second grade, we see that bar is lower. So we didn't hit that growth goal from second grade to third grade. Taking a look at fifth and sixth grade, we see that blue goes way past that diamond. They've exceeded the growth for the national norms at those grade levels. When you look at ninth grade, you see that one goes down. So we actually fell back in ninth grade ELA. So when they went from eighth grade to ninth grade, they actually dropped in that one. Go ahead, Mr. McKenna.
Is it possible, since this is based on growth, not achievement, is it possible that because fifth and sixth exceed, there isn't enough room for growth then for seventh to hit the mark?
It does make it more challenging, definitely. Other questions on reading before we go to math?
Ms. Mansky, from 8th to 9th grade, can you explain a little bit what that transition looks like for the students? I mean, take a look at where we are in 8th grade compared to 9th grade. What are the focuses that we're able to do from a high school level to try to bridge that gap?
So I think one of the challenges going from by 9th grade and 10th grade, they've taken the MAPS test since first grade. So there's a little bit of that disengagement, a little bit of apathy. So trying to, I know some of the teachers really worked on trying to set goals with their classes at the high school this year, which was a new thing for them. I can't give you an answer as far as why there's a dip there. You'll notice there's also a dip in math at 10th grade when we get to that slide too. But I will direct you back to this slide. So looking at what the achievement was, you know, when we look at the norm, so 9th grade, it's 221, 10th grade, it's 223. Like that's the norm. So it's only a 2-point difference.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I do have a question. I'm just wondering, do you ever have the opportunity to look at other districts and see where their growth is compared to ours, our local districts?
As far as you looking at MAPS data?
Yes.
Not all of the area school districts use MAP data. So no, I have never looked at any other districts to see kind of what their trends are.
Okay. I was just wondering if that drop in 9th grade is a trend nationwide, you know, in our area. I think I recall this from the previous report that you gave. It was evident there too. So I was just curious. Thank you.
Okay, looking on to elementary math next. Again, blue was last year, red is this year, and yellow is that national norm. And then moving up to the middle school math. And then high school. And then finally, our math growth. And I want to end with this. Just a reminder that we're encouraging teachers to focus on relationships and not just test scores. Because my fear whenever I present anything about data is that teachers lose that importance of the relationships that they're forming with kids and the importance of that. So I just want to end my presentation by bringing that back to everyone's attention. Any other questions for me?
And to go off what Ms. Mansky just said with the last slide, we will never label a student by a MAP score. And I was at the convention and a district went all in on a reading goal up till grade 3, all in. And we're very honest that we don't care about anything else. This was our goal, and not saying they're wrong. But right now we're really focusing in on getting back to our kids to the swing of things while focusing on that student achievement piece. Don't get me wrong. We have a lot of work to go and our teachers know it, but we're really starting to build those foundations that our kids will run through our walls for us. And that's the number one thing we need to do. We need to show them the relevance. Ms. Mansky said, you know, the fatigue in the 9th grade, our goal is to show them why this is important. Why do I go back to Romeo and Juliet? Why are we reading Romeo and Juliet? Because it makes you think, just like what Mr. McKenna said. I mean, the facts, no one cares about the facts. It is how do you think and how do you respond? And our kids are focusing on the ACT, which is a much different exam than the forward or the maps. Pre-ACTs coming in. So there's a lot of things that our educators and our kids are being thrown at. And we build them up, we support them. We use that time wisely on Wednesday and to really reflect and say, what can we do better? Because our kids in our community are going to expect our increase, and we're expecting it as well. So, but we're focusing on that positive relationship between the student and the teacher and family. And this is just one focal point that we do for parent-teacher conferences as well.
Thank you, Mr. Russ. Thank you, Ms. Mansky. We'll move on to item report B, facility and high school auditorium report. Ms. Hauser.
Thank you. Facility study is an important process that we go through, and it leads to an important document that we use to help guide a lot of our decisions regarding our buildings and property and how we manage them and how we budget for them in future years. And so our last facility study was conducted in 2016, which was almost 7 years ago already. It was comprehensive, meaning it included all of our district buildings. But if we think back to what our buildings looked like 7 years ago, it was quite different. When we did that study, although it was comprehensive and included all buildings, we really knew that our pinch points were at the elementary level. And so we did have a stronger focus on the elementary level in that study. A study is intended to be a living document, as I mentioned. It's not meant to sit on a shelf. It's meant for myself and the director of buildings and grounds and so on to use it to really help manage and plan for our facility needs into the future. And we also used it to guide our facility planning from the sense of when we went to referendum, how we looked at which buildings we would close and things like that. So it really does help in some big discussions with our community as well. All right, so we believe now is time to revisit the study. Again, many changes over the past 7 years, things like the Lakeview elementary building, the old AEC building, the Lawrence Lawson Montessori building has changed focus, Maplewood building has changed focus, and so on.
I'm sorry, did he say board meetings wrapping up in 15 minutes? No? Oh.
We also know that our needs change a lot. So if we think of the world around us and what has happened in the past 7 years, clearly focuses have shifted in some areas and how have our needs changed within our buildings. And then, as I mentioned, the last study really focused on that elementary level. And
is that level really where we have our greatest concern now? Probably not, with Herman being that new building. And so, 7 years ago, this building we're sitting in was the newest building. Well, now in this study, the terminology shifted and now this is a 23-year-old building. So those types of things, for example, are warrant having another study done. And so Mr. Russ and I had been discussing this, and my first step was to reach out to Market and Johnson, who has been a trusted partner and given us excellent results as being our construction manager through many of our projects that we've done in the past 7 years. As a construction manager, in essence, what they're doing is they're an extension or a branch of the school district and helping us to manage the projects, make sure that they're completed on time and on budget, helping us navigate the different vendor relationships. So they're really that party that's working on our behalf to make sure that all of the people performing the work are doing so up to our standard. And so because they've been such an integral part of our planning processes and we've seen great results, we involved them first to be involved in this next revision of the facility study. And they talked us through the process, and we also would involve an architecture firm. And so they recommended some firms who are well-known in this area and specialize in school district studies. And we did have an opportunity to meet with them at the state convention in Milwaukee as well. So where we're at is this coming Monday, the firms will be coming in to do an interview, and we will be interviewing them to see who would be the best fit for moving forward and conducting a study throughout this summer that we would then bring to the board and determine next steps for the study from there. Any questions on the facility study piece?
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So you or the directors will be determining which of those firms are selected, or is there a committee for that? Maybe there's a committee.
So the interviews on Monday, it will be myself, Mr. Russ, and Mr. Drury, our buildings and grounds supervisor. And then we welcomed if there's a board member who would like to be present as well. So from a cost standpoint, Market and Johnson, they're doing this study free of charge. So they do not have a charge involved in this. The architecture firm, we're unsure yet of the charges. All of them have different types of agreements, but for this stage, there would not be community involvement, but anything that maybe would come out of this process, we would definitely have community involvement.
Okay, and so then my next question is, are we going to tell them this is a district-wide study, but we want you to focus on XYZ, or do they tell us, we see that you need to focus on XYZ?
Both.
Okay.
So we've identified some key areas that we think of, but we're asking them to do a comprehensive study, meaning they will for sure look at the areas we identify, but they'll also tell us more of things that they see that we may not be aware of.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, the focus was to keep it as open-ended as possible with a little bit of guidance. So that was the number one thing. So.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Now a little bit more specifically, the auditorium at Sparta High. We have contracted with Main Stage Theatrical Supply. They are out of Milwaukee, but they also have a location in, I believe it's Holman. And they are, as a firm, a consultant for theatrical planning, lighting, audio, video, and curtains. And so they're going through, in essence, a facility study of just the auditorium space currently. And so the project or the scope of the work that they're doing over the coming weeks is meeting with stakeholders to determine what our production needs are, because those vary, between districts and other performance settings. They will advise on budget implications of whatever decisions we make. They will develop the information for electrical, structural, and mechanical. They will draft plans of our space, including 3D renderings, which with as old of a space as it is, we don't have those electronic 3D renderings, so we'll have that. Then they'll write the spec, which is in essence, the work they're doing here is not a guarantee that they will be the engineer or the installer on the work. They're basically coming in and saying, from looking at the space, this is what you need. And then they develop a document that we then put out to bid, which they are able to bid on, but they wouldn't be the sole bidder. And so that's what writing the theatrical specification is. They would also produce the drawings that go with that bid spec so that we get comparative bids back. They will help us review the bids because some of the language is very specific to being in that field. And so they'll help to make sure that we understand that. And then they will help provide review during the stages to make sure that the plan is being followed. So where we're at as of today is they did come and do an initial site walkthrough, and they've been working on the CAD drawings of the current space. Through that walkthrough and looking at the drawings, there are some things that are, even prior to having discussion, they can see that, for example, the curtain structure isn't what would be code if we were to install it today, or things like that. They may be able to tell based on the lighting that it's not LED. So there's some simple, I don't want to say simple, there's some very obvious things that they can identify as goals just from doing that walkthrough. And so they are starting to identify those goals already and get those documented. And then starting to form those ideas on how to achieve those goals. And then what happens is once they have that base plan based on what they could see through the walkthrough, is they'll come in and meet with the various stakeholder groups. So our folks who are involved in the different types of performances, and make sure that the goals are matching, and if they missed anything or anything specific to us that we would like to see. And so that'll be happening by the end of this month. And so from the walkthrough, these are the initial goals that they've already identified. It includes lighting, rigging, audio, video, and infrastructure. And so as I mentioned, you can see some of the things that are bringing things up to 2020 standards. So those are some good goals that again are very broad, and then we'll start to hone in on those once we have talks with the various stakeholder groups.
Ms. Hauser, can I ask a quick question? You, Mr. Russ, and I have spoken about, if you could go back just one slide, Mr. Gonke, thank you, about the scalability opportunity here. So while we're looking at all the different initial goals, we may have to scale into this process just because of funding, correct? Could you just elaborate a little bit on that?
Yep. So we have a budget set aside of just over $400,000 in Fund 46 that we have determined would be, available for this project. We do not have an estimate yet of what the all-in cost would be. So for example, when we started talking to the firms, we were talking lighting and audio, and you'll see there's also video and rigging on here. So there are things that they may identify that are above and beyond what we thought at first glance. And so we don't know if 400,000 will be sufficient or not. And so we may need to make some choices and scaffold in a plan.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
And with that, it's a good possibility, as scaffolding and that sort of thing. There's an idea that the facility assessment comes through and they may recommend a larger auditorium. They may recommend that. So that's all, they're intertwined. So we're going to have to, if it says, I'm going to say an example, 350,000 to do lighting, audio, and video. The facility assessment comes back and says, well, you could do that, but we could possibly expand here. So we're going to have to get some timing here. And that's why these are kind of simultaneously happening, because if we decide to build a larger auditorium, if we change the envelope of it, we'll have to decide, is this the best use of our funds right now? Because obviously changing the envelope is going to be a lot more than 350,000 or 400,000 that we've had. So those are the things that we're going to be keeping in mind rather than dumping 350 wise money there, but using another 75,000 to pull it out, store it, build everything around, put it back in. We'll have to make those sorts of decisions. So that's why they're so intertwined with each other. But the auditorium process is different than the other ones because the architects aren't used to doing auditoriums and sound light. Some of the stuff I'm learning about, I don't even know what it is.
Ms. Hauser, may I assume that each of the 5 items would be separate bid documents? Or are we expecting someone to bid on, companies to bid on the whole work?
That is a good question. We aren't to that stage yet where I could say for sure how they're intending it. Speaking on past experience, usually the different bid categories are separated, so you can bid on what portion applies to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for Ms. Hauser? If not, thank you very much. But we're throwing it right back to you for the financial report.
Yeah, this will be an easy one. So the full financial report is attached in board docs. We are trending right where we want to be. You'll see we had a big influx this past month in the local revenue sources, and that's from the tax collection at this time of year. So that is helpful with cash flow. And with expenses, again, although we're halfway through the year with the way that our workforce is and the workforce makes up the majority of our cost, you'll see it's not an exact 50-50 split for when we have a lot of our expenditures. But overall, we're trending right where we need to be. Next month, I'll have the second round of budget revisions for this fiscal year. I'll also be presenting the preliminary budget for 23-24 and a couple other super fun, exciting budget things. So be ready for lots of budget talk in March. But any questions on January?
I see no questions. Thank you very much. All right, that concludes the reports. We're moving on to business. The first item in business is discussion and possible recommendation to approve policies 2430, 2431, 2460, 2460.03, 2461, 9111, 9120, 9140, 9150, 9151, 9160, 9190, 9210, 9250, 9270, 9500, 9555, 9600, 9700, 9800, 9800.01, and these would be under consent. Does anyone have concerns about any of these that they would like to see pulled up?
Mr. Hendricks, I'd entertain a motion to recommend approval of the full board, the policies as presented, and be placed under consent.
Thank you, Mr. Sharpsey.
I have a couple comments, just real quick,
Sure.
if I may,
let's
or
get a
should we do a
second.
second on that?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's get a second first and then we
I'll-
can.
I'll make a second.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna. Okay, so we have a motion and second in discussion. We'll throw that over to Ms. Lopez.
Great. Mr. Vest, on 9270.
Yep.
You and I have discussed this a little bit, under. I'll give Mr. Gonke a chance to look that up. The third, no, I'm sorry, the fourth. No, it's the third paragraph. We are selecting shall not to make it very clear that private schools cannot participate in the WIAA or extracurricular programs. Earlier, you and I had discussed how Fund 80 takes care of the middle school athletics. Would it, to be even more clear, could we maybe add in there, this policy does not apply to middle school athletics or something? I just wouldn't want a parent to look at this and say, oh, I'm not associated with the public school. I don't know who to call there, but I see this policy that says private schools, kids can't participate in extracurricular programs. So my kid can't play football in 8th grade. I just wondered.
As of right now, middle school activities are open because they're Fund 80.
Yep.
And since they're Fund 80, that would trump this because the definition of Fund 80. I'm perfectly fine adding middle school, something, a caveat. We can craft it right now if you want. Like middle school programs that are sponsored by Fund 80 are exempt from this policy.
It's a small change, but I think it would be helpful if the board.
Do we want it exempt from the whole policy
No.
or just that paragraph?
Sponsor funded by Fund 80 do not apply to this paragraph.
I can just throw that out. I'm not sure.
I
that
don't know.
makes sense, but
Typing along. Oh,
all right, so Mr. Scholze made the motion, correct? And it's a friendly amendment to that? Okay. And Mr. McKenna agrees? Ms. Lopez, did you have
I
another?
have one other.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. Yes, thank you. That's perfect. 9800.01 recognition of veterans as volunteers. So we talked about this in the workshop. That's 9800.01. So I know that this policy is driven by state statute. But I just want to confirm that this does not preclude us from recognizing veterans who have served our district, volunteered in our district, even if they don't comply with Section D.
that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board members have a concern or want to bring up any discussion? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Item C, discussion and possible recommendation to approve the school bell times for the 23-24 school year. And this would be under consent.
All right, before we dive into the actual bell times, we just wanted to talk a little bit about what this all entails in regards to how do we set bell times and what does it all entail. And I'm going to ask Ms. Hauser to fill in any gaps that I may have accidentally omitted, but this is a very comprehensive process. It involves transportation, it involves nutrition services, it involves our community, it involves our businesses, and it also involves our staff. Let's start with transportation. We're currently right now with our transportation, we have two sets of routes. We have a pre-K through 4 route, and then a secondary route, a 5 through 12 route. They're different fleets. 5 years ago or so, the district decided to split that rather than having a kindergartner ride with a senior. We split that. So the times might be a little bit more compact because back in the day, I'm sure Mr. Oswald loves when he was there with all the bus transfer that we had here when everybody went here, and he's smiling from ear to ear right now because he doesn't have to do it anymore. So we've changed the time so we can be a little bit more compact if we want. Also with our transportation, we have the morning drop off, and then we have the pre-K in the afternoon, and then we have the PM pickup or drop off. In between the AM and PM is when our drivers also have second jobs or primary jobs. Some of them are primary. And I talked to Mr. Schwartz, late starts are difficult for them because their drivers are already off to their other job. And so they have to make some adjustments. So really keeping in mind about our drivers. Our staff, a lot of our staffing, we have some shared staff. We're still trying to work through that, but we have our shared staff that have to be able to go between buildings and that sort of thing. Also, we found when we did, SHS used to have a late start, a little bit about 8 o'clock. We did run into some concerned staff about, well, a lot of our staff at SHS at the time, and still does, lives in the La Crosse area. And if they have their children over there, their daycare and that sort of thing, all the other La Crosse schools and over on Alaska and Holman are very similar to us with our start times. So finding daycare and making sure that they have enough time to drop their kid off, go back and pick them up, we ran into a little bit of a challenge there. Co-curriculars. We found out that some of when we had the later starts, our home events, they'd have to get out for. And also with that, we had some families that got into a bind about may work third shift, that they have to leave by 3:15, 3:30. And we actually had some kids need to leave school early just to get home so they can watch their younger brothers or sisters or at home or whatever, or care for other people. We had businesses asking, we need our workforce at 3 because that's when we shift. There's a lot of things that come into play with that. Our doors are open before school, as early as we can staff them. Some of them, Montessori, I'll applaud, and Dr. Burnett, their staff get there at 7:30 and those doors right open. On inclement weather days at Meadowview, their staff gets there at 7:30, 7:35, their doors are open. So there are welcoming kids in during inclement weather for sure. So it is possible, and we have our WIN program. We do have that as an opportunity for our elementary students that are there. In my morning runs, we have people that are at Herman Elementary, for instance, now that aren't WIN, that are waiting there at 7:15 for the 7:20 dismissal. They run to the playground and they can go to Meadowview, drop them off and get to the high school. So it's really it's pretty entailed with this. And these aren't much change from last year, from this year to next year, except we're adding some minutes in. Herman, they're adding 10 minutes at the end of the day. Meadowview is adding 5 minutes at the beginning of the day. Southside is also adding 10 minutes at their end of their day to do those things. So we're adding more minutes in, knowing that we need to get those as well. And when I talk about minutes, the DPI has those minimum requirements that we need to ensure that our kids are in school during those times to make sure. Adding the minutes to the elementary level will help if we decide to revisit how we're going to do our emergency closure days for next year. So that will all be in place. Once this gets set, then we can start filling in the gaps for some things. Ms. Hauser.
I'll elaborate on 3 things. So when our high school staff, we heavily rely on to staff the WIN program. So we need the high school's ending bell time to be as close to the elementary bell time in order to get that staffing there. That's a critical piece of the WIN program. The DPI minutes of instruction, the secondary level kids need more minutes by state statute than the elementary kids. So again, that plays into, if we're trying to target similar end times, then the morning time is what has to have some give, because we all have the same number of days of school. And then the last part is, when we play too much with the morning bell times, we went through this about 5 years ago too. We had kids who were getting picked up on the bus before 6 a.m. because of the earlier start times. So we tried to push that morning start time back as far as possible and kind of find that sweet spot with all of the employment things that Mr. Russ was talking about, but also not getting kids so early in the morning. So.
And for the secondary, and one of the reasons, when we had through the pandemic, we did shift to 8 o'clock, and we did look at the research. Ideally, high school students, the research shows, and I'm not here to disagree with the research, perform better per the research when they start later. The reality is right now, not a lot of high schools do it because of a lot of factors. Is there something we can work towards? Yep, but there's just a lot of factors and a lot of people that need to come to the table, and some things just need to change. We need to look at our priorities. Middle school athletics is also something in there. Some districts don't even allow their middle school kids to get out of school early. And that's right. And then that's why we have 5 and 6 o'clock middle school games rather than 4 or 4:30 at times. So, but the research does say that for elementary or for secondary, as they grow up in age, the later the start day is what the research says is best practice.
Questions regarding bell times or start times? Ms. Lopez.
Thank you. I was wondering, do we know the percentage of students that ride the bus versus the number or the percentage of students that are privately have private transportation?
We could get that for the next meeting for sure. And now it'll be signed up for the bus versus actually do it. We have some people that do it just in case they need it and they never use it, or they use it once or twice. So it will be technically signed up. We could do.
And Mr. Rest, could you one more time state at each school when the doors actually open?
Yep. At Southside, at 7:17, I believe. On there, the doors open and they come out of their cars. At Herman, there's 7:20. They go to the playground. 7:35 is when you get dropped off at 7:35, then they run into the building. But before 7, there's supervision on the playground starting at 7:20, I believe. That's when everybody gets out. Mr. Oswald, is that correct? Oh, sorry, 7:40, they go in the building, but they get out of their cars at 7:20. Montessori is 7:30. Meadowview and ISA is normally 7:45. However, that is 7:35 for inclement weather. Sales in High Point is 7:25. I'm sorry, SHS in High Point, and then sales, I believe their doors open at 8:15.
Mr. Russ, I just want to, I look back on an email we received earlier today, and I saw that it wasn't shared with the rest of the board. So I just want to see if you can elaborate on it a little bit. It was from a concerned parent. They just said they see a challenge with dropping a middle school student off with the expectation of standing outside unsupervised for 20 minutes before the doors to the buildings are open. Based on scheduling, timing, everything, there's really, is there any way to resolve that? There's not, is there? Because I'm sorry, I should elaborate.
No.
So they have a high school student that's dropping the other siblings off at Meadowview, and they have to get to school at the high school at 7:40. And so that was their concern if the doors don't open until
7:45.
Yes, sir.
Right now, in order for if a high schooler drives, they would drop their middle school sibling off at 7:30 and they would still have an opportunity to get to SHS or 7:25. We do have some of those. As I'm sitting out there and wave, I see the high school kids run in there and 7:30 and they're on way out. Some of them are a little bit there earlier because some of them have a sibling at Herman as well. So the rationale, I don't want to speak for middle school, but they, once again, they're older, they can stand outside. If the inclement weather's there at 7:35, but the other alternative is that we open our doors at 7:30, which we're going to have to need supervision for that.
And just to confirm, you and cabinet, your directors, you've exhausted all options when it comes to this, correct?
We feel that this is the best for
Thank
our
you.
district at this time for next year, for sure.
Thank you.
Ms. Lopez.
Thank you. So, Mr. S, from what I understand, this agenda point is for the bell times, the times that school starts. But would we have some leeway maybe to explore what it would mean in terms of staffing and cost to open Meadowview just 10 minutes earlier? Well, I guess it's 15 minutes earlier.
Yeah.
Just to see if that is something that we could help our parents with, because maybe it would even, not that we want all students to come at 7:30 in the morning, but maybe it would alleviate some of the backup, the congestion at Meadowview that parents are telling me that they have. Maybe even, staying out on the highway, trying to get in.
Yeah, we could look to do that. I think you hit it right on the head when you said if we open up our doors at 7:15, a majority of them will come at 7:15. And we're not talking about one or two educational assistants. We may be talking about several educational assistants depending on how many kids come. And for the traffic, luckily enough, I think Meadowview's done an excellent job of rerouting some things. And we do not have a lot of that traffic back up anymore, which is very nice to do. And all of our buildings, I would really celebrate what they've done to really alleviate the traffic, which I was told last year, and I'm thinking this is nothing. This is piece cake, but they've worked very hard to do that. But we can definitely explore it. But there will be a financial impact. But even if we open it up at 7:30, getting staff there, we have to go in 15-minute increments, and adding time would be needed.
Sure. And I wouldn't recommend, or I wouldn't think that it would be necessary to open the doors of Meadowview at 7:15, but maybe 15 minutes earlier at 7:30 would potentially, if it's feasible, would help.
Yep. Look into it. Yep.
Thank you.
So on that, when we had rain this last fall and I dropped my middle schooler off and it's downpouring rain and I'm seeing kids along Montgomery or along Water Street hiding under trees because it's downpouring and they're soaked when they get to school. And next thing you know, we have absences because they're sick and there's kids hiding under the eaves and whatnot. And myself personally and a couple of other moms, we see this and we complain, like we will wholeheartedly volunteer and be out here in the cafeteria as long as those kids don't have to stand out in the snow and they don't have to be cold. I'll still do it today if asked to, if it's the financial aspect of it or it's the people aspect of it. As parents and as moms, I'm sure 5, 6, 7 of us will wholeheartedly, because like I said, to see those kids, I'm taking my kid to school and these kids are walking and they're hiding under trees, still 6 blocks from school because it's just downpouring, and then they're in wet clothes all day and it's not conducive for the students' learning, I think, anyways. But there are other options I think that we can explore that may not cost us anything. So just throwing it out there.
Thank you. I would also be very interested in seeing the financial impact. I'm not sure that we want to depend on volunteers. However, I think there's issues of reliability and even liability, but I think you bring up very good points. All right. Any further comments? Otherwise, I'm open for a motion to recommend.
Mr. Hendricks, I would make a motion to recommend approval to the full board, the school bell times for the 2023-2024 school year and be placed under consent.
I will second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mr. Schulze, a second by Ms. Presswood-Funkhauser. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for that. Moving on, then we have item D, discussion and possible recommendation to approve increasing student worker wages from the current $12 an hour to $14 an hour. And this would be placed hopefully under consent. Ms. Hauser.
Yeah, thank you. So we really have 2 primary groups of student workers. We have student workers who help out with custodial and grounds work. The grounds work is typically in the summer in the form of trimming for our lawnmowers and things like that. Custodial, we have help during the summer. And at our high school, we even have student workers during the school day to help. We all know that it's been hard to find some support staff type jobs. And so those student workers are a big piece of our operations. As I mentioned just a little while ago, also in our Win After School program, student workers are a critical piece of that staffing plan as well. What we have noticed when looking for student workers is we, even at $12, are not competitive with the other job opportunities in town. And so we are struggling to find student workers. Particularly, we've already been kind of putting our feelers out for summer workers for this coming summer in custodial. And we're not having very good luck because there's too many other opportunities out there that have a higher hourly rate. Student workers are advantageous to us from a financial perspective, from the sense that there's no benefits. It's really just the hourly rate. And it's a great opportunity for our students to have a reliable employer. And hopefully with some of them, we have some future workforce talent also. So we are looking to increase from $12 to $14 an hour. For the custodial and grounds, based on last year's actual hours, it would come with a budget, under $5,000. Looking at 3,600 if we kept the same hours as last year. And then when this is school year only when hours, but it would be, about an $8,000 impact. But again, when is through the Fund 80, so that wouldn't be an impact on the general operating budget. So that is our recommendation.
Ms. Hauser, I hate to ask this, but is $14 an hour competitive in today's?
I would say that will give us a good opportunity, and if we need to adjust from there, we will. So we went from $10 to $12 within the past probably 2 years. I can't remember the exact date, and that wasn't enough. So we'll let you know, but I'm optimistic that we'll be at a good spot.
I guess because going into this, I was actually going to look at seeing I was going to say 15, but you say 16, Mr. McKenna? Yeah, that's.
The thing I want
Right.
to be conscious of is our support staff that is not student workers, and making sure that our rates are tiered appropriately for.
That was my next question.
That support staff that isn't student workers does have benefits though, correct?
If they work 30 hours a week or more.
Is there a way to somehow incorporate a school credit with these work hours that we don't do the benefits, but to make it a little more appealing to hire more student workers?
We do have, if needed, we typically use that as an option for seniors that might be behind credit, but we do have a work credit during the year that our students can earn. So every 90 hours, you do get a work credit. We could do that for a summer school credit as well, or during the year credit for some of our high school workers.
I mean, it just be maybe a little bit more conducive to having high school students like, hey, you work and we'll give you a credit while you work.
They can earn that credit though, wherever they work too.
Okay.
So, but no, it's not a bad idea just to say, hey, by the way, this too is an idea. One of the nice things that I've, especially for the summer custodial hours, which we've had some student athletes in the past, they're very flexible. That's one of the benefits of working for us, in my opinion, especially at the high school, is their flexibility. I have an event, I have a family event. They're just happy to get you whenever they can. Not all employers are like that. Nope, we need you to work here, here, here. And it goes back to the environment that I think we've created here. So I think $14 is a competitive. And once again, with the flexibility and the environment we have, we get a lot of people wanting to do this.
I have a question about the WIN hours and how that would impact the levy that we set for Fund 80 in October or November, whichever month it was. Will we have to cut something else out?
Yeah, that's a good question. So staffing has continued to be a challenge. And so we have some flexibility to get us through this year, and then that would definitely play a factor into the amount that we determine we need for next year. We should not have any issues this year, and then we'll reanalyze for next year.
Approximately how many unstaffed positions do we have in WIN?
It changes monthly, I would say. We work to fill the positions, but there's been periods of time where there's vacancy between resignations and being able to find replacement.
Mr. Byrne?
Yeah, Ms. Mansky might have a little more.
So the Herman site coordinator resigned at the end of December, and we just have hired a new person who's starting soon. So that's an example of a pretty important position that's been open for an extended period of time.
Mr. Burns Gilbert. I was just going to ask for more background on how do we advertise this to students and what does that look like? Should we change some of that? Just an overview there.
A lot of it is the relationships at the high school, to be honest. So relationships through the school counselors, relationships with our buildings and ground staff and other staff at the high school. Mr. Ross, what am I missing?
Yeah, that's the relationships and word of mouth. And it's kind of, yep, this is a great summer job, you know, this, and this. And we have a lot of student athletes that take advantage of this for the reasons why I stated earlier. And it's a good job. And if we needed more workers, we'll make an announcement in the announcements at SHS. We do that for WIN workers quite a bit. But it's really just to get it out through the announcements, through their grad groups and Spartan Strong. But it's basically, once you're in, it's a really good job.
I'm open for a motion.
I'll make a motion to increase custodial and grounds and WIN staff hourly wages by $2. Is that correct? On
Yes.
consent?
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion by Ms. Lopez, second by Mr. Burns Gilbert, to recommend as stated. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I was supposed to ask for a roll call, but since this isn't final, it's just a recommendation to the full board. I think we'll survive. Item E, discussion and possible recommendation to approve the 23-24 budget calendar. Ms. Hauser.
Thank you. The budget calendar is attached in board docs, and I'll go over a summary of it here. So the Board of Education does review annually and approve the budget calendar. And this is an important process because it's your opportunity to provide me feedback on what you would like to see during the budget year. If there's any presentations or any other specific things that would make your jobs easier in approving the budget. And then also it's a way to keep our community informed of when we have some critical budget conversations, and so that they can look forward to the various budget meetings throughout the year as well. So the budget calendar has primarily two different color codings. The yellow is reviewing and revising the current year budget. So for this year, that would be the 22-23 budget. And then the blue is planning for and approving the following year's budget. In this case, that would be the 23-24 budget. There's also a green color, which is just the budget calendar because it kind of overlaps both years. But so the yellow is current year, blue is the following year. And as you can see, most of the year we're in two different budget cycles. Rarely we'll have three different budget cycles going on, but typically we're in two different budget years in any given month. And so you can see the months down the left-hand column, the major budget decisions for the current year in yellow, and then for the following year in blue. Some of these things are statutorily driven, such as when we have to certify the tax levy. Some things are driven by outside parties. So for example, we don't get our insurance renewal until March because the insurance companies need so many months worth of data. So if we wanted to have that discussion in January, well, we could, but we wouldn't get the data till March anyway. So some of these things, I don't want to say there's no flexibility, but they're outside forces kind of driving some of these dates. And then some things we have more flexibility with, like when we start our staffing plan conversations, for example, or what months we do budget revisions for the current year. And so if you have any questions on any of the items, we really have to take them case by case as far as what the flexibility is for adjusting them. And then here's the next part of the year, June through November. Are there any questions or feedback on the budget calendar?
Sorry, I have a question.
Don't apologize.
All righty. So this is the summary of the budget calendar, and I don't know if Mr. Gonke can go into board docs and pull up the actual budget calendar for 2023. No, okay.
Yeah.
No, all right. So my question was regarding, actually this, and this will probably do. Would you please go to January?
Yep.
There you go. So when I'm looking at both of these in conjunction, the teachers' compensation model, for example, that committee is listed in January, but it's in black, which means it's not like a board decision. Is that correct? So just because it's in January doesn't mean it can't, the conversations can't begin in December.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Many of these things are, at least in my world, in conversations pretty much year round.
Right.
But these are the months we have to have some decisions or some public discussion or things like that. So these are the target months to kind of start wrapping up some things. But without a doubt, they're talked about prior to.
Okay, very good. Thank you. That was basically everything I have.
One quick suggestion. I think this is really helpful. I appreciated seeing them side by side to just kind of live in those two different timelines. It's like time travel. So anyway, thanks for that. But I think one piece that I didn't see throughout the budget calendar was just some of that community education, some of the community engagement pieces. I know we tried to emphasize more of that over the last year and going into the annual meeting back in October. That was really helpful. So I wonder if we can whatever makes sense with workloads and the other parts that's not on the calendar that is going on too. But could build some of that in so the public looking at the budget calendar would know when to kind of expect, whether it be a overview from Ms. Hauser or maybe more of a workshop like we hosted back in early October, but just kind of build some of that in so it's part of those expectations.
Very good. Any other discussion? If not, I'd be open for a motion.
Mr. Hendricks, I'd make a motion to recommend approval to the full board, the 2023-2024 budget calendar. And can I place that under consent? And let's go ahead and
Yes.
place that under
All
consent.
right, thank you, Mr. Scholes.
I'd make a second.
All right, thank you, Mr. McKenna, for that second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. That concludes the business items. So I'll throw it back to Mr. Russ for announcements and information.
All right, just some quick announcements. A couple things we have a full board meeting on the 27th as normal. The directors will not be able to be in attendance because they're going to be at a workshop for grants. So if you do need anything, please let me know ahead of time so we can get that to you. And please take it easy on me on the 27th as well. I can't look to my right like I usually do. But anyway, but no, for the upcoming meetings, we also have a special meeting on the 20th. That's 6 o'clock, Meadowview's LMC. We're going to be looking at some closed session items on the upcoming negotiations with the SEA to start that process. We have our workshop on the 22nd of February for the 8,000 series. And I just wanted to let everybody know that this also includes a few pandemic or epidemic policies. Face coverings and other PPEs will be discussed as a workshop model with that. So I wanted to make sure that goes out there as well. We probably do need an additional workshop. We're looking at March 15th or 16th, but we'll get that on the calendar. Talked about the 27th and then our March committee meetings, the 13th and the 27th as well. I met with the city, state and county the other day about the Montgomery and Water Street intersection. Right now, there's no arrows for the stoplights there. And I believe our plan is to get a traffic study there to see what can be done. After the traffic study, that's our first thing, very similar to the facility assessment, what can be done. And they may say, nope, you could add things for X amount of dollars and get 2 cars quicker. And that might not be the best use of our funds, but at least we're going to go down that route and then we'll go from there. But it is a true collaboration with the city, county, and state, because right there, it's everybody's highway. So the city and county going back to it, and the city streets and the state highways. And SAD happenings, a couple things. Southside early, we have our Sparta Roundup going on. So if you can make it out there between 10 and 6 tomorrow at Southside, put your badge on there. I came out there for the first time. It was great until I took the eye exam. And of course, they said you need to go see an optometrist right away. So it's a good thing I have one already booked for a month from now. So, but it was interesting, the birds and what it was very cool to see and actually go through that. So it's a very neat thing. They have stations and registration and a lot of good things there. So I'd encourage you tomorrow from 10 to 6 if you can. And the last thing I'd like to highlight, Montessori has got a partnership with the Challenge Academy that every Thursday their cadets come and work with our Montessori students to, expand their virtues and really to be good role models for our kids there. So that was another thing I really wanted to highlight this week.
Thank you very much. With that, I'd accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. We're adjourned.
And Mr. Russ, we're gonna recess until 7:50, 7:50. And call the meeting to order. Meeting has been noticed to Evans Print and Media Group, WCOW Radio, Magnum Radio, La Crosse Tribune, Sparta City Hall, and Sparta Free Library. Mr. Russ, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, they're not.
All right, with no changes, I would request a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Prestwood Funkhauser. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Hendricks. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Russ, do we have any public input tonight?
We do not have any public input tonight.
Thank you very much. All right, item 2A, resolution authorizing the transfer of funds, the establishment of an escrow account with respect to and the defeasance of certain of the general obligation refunding bonds dated August 9th, 2018. Ms. Hauser.
All right, thank you. So if you recall, when we set the tax levy in October, we levied an additional over $4 million to prepay debt. And the reason we did that was the two primary reasons are it comes with some significant interest savings, and it allows us to capitalize on that state aid refund sooner. Meaning if we paid down the debt in future years, we would get that state aid in future years, or we can realize it now. And the benefit to doing that also is that it helps us to manage our mill rate and our tax levy, not only in the year that we do it, but also in the following year, because we're capitalizing on that state aid the following year, which allows us to continue to keep our tax levy lower. So that amount that we already levied, it is sitting in a holding account on our, in our portfolio of investments. And we can only use that money to prepay debt or to pay down debt. The next debt that is available has a call date in 2027, but we utilize an escrow agent basically so that we can make that payment now and get the benefit of the interest and the state aid now, and then they manage paying off that debt for us once the call date come due. So the dollars of the benefits for prepaying the debt, as far as interest savings, we'll have $1,968,000 approximately of interest savings. And we will generate additional state aid next year for the $1,845,000 approximately. What this will also do is it will pay off our debt in 2034, which is 4 years earlier than what we had originally planned on when we took out the debt. So here's a side-by-side comparison of our debt schedule. The first box is before the defeasance, so basically as we're sitting as of today. And then the second box is after we would complete this defeasance, what our debt payoff would look like. So the points to highlight here are that light blue shading down towards the bottom. Those 2 years would drop off, and then a partial of a third year, which is the light purple color. And then if you look on the far column on the right, you can see we also have a reduction in payments each of the other years, and that's that interest savings. So we're saving interest over many years, with 2.5 years falling off at the end of the debt as well. And so the resolution that you would be approving tonight is the formality of saying we have this lump of money sitting, and you're giving authority to be able to apply that money to the debt. So the actions you took earlier this year were to levy that additional money, and now this action is to take that money and apply it towards the debt. If you chose not to do that, in essence, that money would have to sit in that debt holding account, and we could use it to offset future debt payments. So the option is really, do we use it now this year, or do we hold on to it and use it in future years? And the recommendation would be to use it this year because of the interest savings. Any questions?
Questions or comments from board members?
Just
Mr.
one-
McKenna, go for
Yeah,
it.
just one quick question. The 2034 is a date assumed with no future debt defeasance, correct?
You got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Any further questions or comments from board members? Right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to authorize the resolution for this year. Is that right, Ms. Hauser? Okay,
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Wells. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. McKenna. Roll call.
Mr. McKenna,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Ms. Prestwood,
Yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks, Mr. Burns Gilbert,
Yes.
Ms. Lopez.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Item 2B, discussion and possible action to move to closed session regarding an individual's employment per Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. Do I have a motion to move to closed
I'll
session?
make that motion.
I have a motion from Mr. McKenna. Do I have a second? Second from Mr. Hendricks. Roll call.
Mr. Hendricks, Ms. Prestwood,
Yes.
Ms. Lopez,
Yes.
Mr. Wells,
Yes.
Mr. Burns Gilbert,
Yes.
Mr. Schulte,
Yes.
Mr. McKenna.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0. We are in closed session.
There, we will not be returning. The video recording will end at this time or shortly after.